under a beautiful blue sky. They tell him to take a look. It was the super rare silver slime. It was already the fourth one, and the guy behind the tree tells him not to draw attention. Then suddenly out of nowhere, someone comes running and he shouts for the guy to wait. But the kid cuts in first, landing a critical hit on the first, the fourth, the second, another critical hit, the third, the fourth, and with that, everything's dead. The player, Takahashi Yuko, had just received 3 S-rank items. The armor, the gloves, and the boots from the silver slimes. The dude in the green hood can't believe it. Yeah, from what he noticed, that was 3 critical hits. The blonde says she saw the same thing. And besides that, why did it look like every single drop was rare? The two of them could only think this guy was insanely lucky. The protagonist, looking at his inventory, thinks it's unbelievable, too good to be true. He really was being rewarded for all the suffering he went through in his past life. And we see him old as hell, an 85-year-old bronze ring hunter. Somebody give this man retirement already. He's working overtime. He's in the Tokyo dungeon first floor. Everyone's showing how the monsters are attacking the area. People decide what to do, scared to death, staying if those high-level creatures reach this place. All the beginners are going to die. A kid grabs the old man's shoulder, telling him, "This isn't the time to be hunting slimes. It's time for them to leave." But the old man just gives him a slap and walks off, ignoring everyone without saying a word. Obviously, the others decide to run. He's basically at death's door, which is true, so whatever. But then, foul play in the game. Someone shoulder checks the old guy and he falls awkwardly. The poor man, gripping his sword, says that decades have passed since the appearance of adventurers. By now, everyone was familiar with status windows, leveling up and killing monsters. The system is simple. You kill monsters, you level up, and along with that, your stats increase too. The guy complains that this time he only gained 5 strength. Others get magic, like that girl over there using a healing spell on Lightbulb Head. That was just a normal player, but our guy is the only level 98, with stats lower than 5. He says he worked his whole life, killed every slime possible. He swore he'd never give up. He just kept hunting until he reached 98, killing nothing but slimes. Nothing else. But then he cuts down one more and still can't believe nothing's changed. The max level was 99, and he knew something special had to happen. There's no way he was really destined to be a failure. He runs straight at the slime, smacks it with his bare hand, healing for the bastard to die, tears apart with pure brutality, biting into it. And right then, he levels up. Finally, he hits 99, trembling as he says, "This is the great reward for everything he suffered." But the system says he gained 1 point of strength. Just like that, his grand total reaches a hopping 6. The old man can't believe it. He slams the ground, asking if the world is playing with him. Had his entire life really been for nothing? At that moment, surrounded by creatures, he decides there's nothing left to expect from this world. The monsters that had been announced begin to appear and close in on him. For him, though, that was fine. His life had been miserable anyway. Everyone humiliated him, and he couldn't save his mother, who always took care of him. He even ruined his little sister's dreams. Finally, this cursed life ends with him being turned into slime. Death. That's all the little system says, until suddenly the Matrix flashes up, announcing that a strange error occurred in Takahashi Yuko's system. To fix it, the only option was to roll back his life. As an apology from the system, he receives a secret parameter with 99999 points. His life ends, and he opens his eyes to someone congratulating him. From this moment on, he was an adventurer. The protagonist stands there, still not really understanding, glancing around. She asks if something's wrong. He says no, heads toward the pillar, and remembers this was the day he registered for the first time at the Adventurers Guild, March 15th. He also remembers a Strange message about some kind of bonus he hadn't understood. He opens his status, and unfortunately, it looks the same as always. At least he already had those 6 points of strength, right? The ones that took him 85 years to get. But then he notices something weird in the bottom right corner of the screen. Scrolls down and asks himself, what the hell is this? The guy had 9,999 luck. He tries to calm himself down before freaking out, wondering if luck was even a real attribute in his past life. For him, it always felt like some secret thing nobody could even see. And still, it seemed insane that he had so much of it. So, yeah, the man who spent 70 years hunting slimes in pure suffering now had unbelievable luck. Well, no harm in trying, right? So he decides it's time to hunt some slimes. On the dungeon's first floor, he looks around and sees the usual little blue ones. For him, that feels just like home. But then suddenly, something flashes by, and he wonders if it's what he thinks. A super rare silver slime, the same monster he'd only seen once in 70 years of slime hunting. And, unfortunately, it escaped immediately back then. That cursed thing gives a ridiculous amount of experience, but it's famous for running away fast. That's why Takahashi approaches it quietly. But then, out of nowhere, an arrow lands right by his foot. He's about to curse the bastard who's off in the distance apologizing, but then he notices the slime acting strangely, looking side to side, confused. He imagines it's about to escape, but instead the creature lunges at him, and he can't quite make sense of it. The slime jumps again, launches another attack, and this time he counters, striking straight at the core and its head and shattering the creature. If there's one thing he knows, it's the weak spot and his slime. The problem is that his shabby little sword snapped on the first strike. Now he's going to need a new one. He's already thinking nothing's changed in this life. When a golden glow catches his eye, he turns stunned. The damn thing had dropped an S-rank weapon. And now that we know he's this lucky, I really want to know, does that luck carry over with the ladies too? He's excited, saying it's a good start, even though that sword had a high chance of raw attack since it came from a monster that's pretty evasive. He's eager to begin hunting, and that's when he spots 4 silver slimes in front of him. He wonders if he's dreaming, and the monsters charge at him. With no choice, he decides he has to deal with it. Slashes again, landing critical, critical, critical. That was the moment everything began, when that rain of S-rank items fell to the ground. After that, he kept hunting for about another hour. In total, he found around 10 silver slimes, something that in his past life he only seen once in 70 years. On top of that, most of them were dropping rare loot, and the kid's backpack was already filling up. At that point, it was undeniable. His luck was way too good. He drops onto the grass, smiling, saying that with this power, he could finally become someone, make his family happy, take care of his sick mother, and help his little sister. That's when he remembers he has a family. He wonders if they're doing okay. It had been 70 years since he last saw them. He wants to go home and meet them again. At that moment, I thought he'd make up some excuse to go elsewhere, but no. We're already there face to face with the old house, and he even wonders if it was on the 2nd floor. He walks past house after house until he sees the name Takahashi in front of one RU-203. He tries to calm himself, takes a deep breath, and tells himself it's okay. Just as he's about to gather the courage to open it, the door opens first, and his little sister appears. Poor guy. Turns out he's got an arrow in the house. Someone cut the hair of hers before she heads down the wrong path. Still, he hugs Nomi, who wants to know if this is some prank, if there's a camera recording why he's acting like that. Yukio, though, just swears that in this life he won't let anyone take away what's precious to him. The big mouth already told his sister that he's got super luck, and she wants to know if that means they can save their mother. He says, of course, all he has to do is work a little harder. But hey, say stuff like that and the bad luck wave comes. Sure enough, the next day he sold that mountain of shrank items for a fortune. With the money, the guy went to an auction and threw down 10,000 cash on the rarest recovery elixir. Now we're at the hospital. Damn. Talk about the kid. 200 IQ. That's a protagonist who actually uses his head. His mother miraculously looks like a normal woman. For some reason lately, I've been reading stories where mothers look like honest-to-God actresses. She asks how they're doing, and the protagonist says he's the one who wants to know how she's doing. Momi hands her some food, but she says they shouldn't be wasting money on her like that. Obviously, our boy tells her not to worry about money anymore and says he's got a little present. Right then, he pulls out the potion, and Noi says she's proud of her brother for making money in the dungeon and buying it. Their mom wants to know how he managed to earn so much money when he just became an adventurer. The rascal says he was lucky. At least he wasn't lying. And without ceremony, her mother isn't one to stall. She grabs it, says, "Hand it over, damn it." Takes a big gulp and starts glowing, throwing out an error. They ask how she's feeling and she says she feels light and can even breathe better. He celebrates immediately and his sister high-fives him. And then he tells her to eat the pudding already. After the elixir, her symptoms ease. The disease stopped progressing and she started rehabilitation. With that, the story ended, folks. See you in the next video. Just kidding. We're heading back home. But what more could this kid even want? He already did everything he dreamed of. Damn kid. Being the Chad he is. As soon as his mom recovered, he put her back into her natural habitat. His sister is all happy, but he says it still isn't enough. That potion had only been a temporary measure. It couldn't cure the disease 100%. She wants to know what they're going to do, and he answers that they need an L-rank potion. Man, he's never even seen one. Doesn't L sound like some loser rank? The item's name is Elixir. Real creative, and his sister says she's heard about something like that on TV. Apparently, only the top adventurers in the world ever managed to get their hands on one. The worst part is that it's a rare item that only shows up on floors below 50, meaning the stronger you get, the harder it is to find. Unless, of course, you've got 999 luck. And the other problem is that the item's non-tradable. He can't sell it to anyone. His sister realizes that means they'll have to get it themselves. And he says that's exactly it. Now Nomi wants to know if he can even make it to those higher fours. He says normally it should be impossible. His death would be like a dog getting run over in the street. She flinches, but he explains that normally that's how it would go. After all, the potion he gave their mom wasn't just luck. He also had the knowledge from his past life. He knows where elixirs spawn, because even though he couldn't climb higher, he always studied every floor. That cursed translator tricked me. Turns out the elixir only drops from monsters above 450. The exception is the floor 20 boss, the ancient golem. Obviously, the tough part about that monster is not only that it's hard to kill, but it's also hard to even find. On top of that, it's rare for it to drop the item, which is why almost nobody knows about it. In his past life, it only happened once. But judging by how things are going now, it shouldn't be impossible for him. Noi says he's got that guilty face like he's planning something shady, and tells him to drink some water, saying she knows he can do whatever he sets his mind to. The protagonist explains that there's a chance, but first he has to prepare a few things because there's always a more efficient way to solve problems. The first thing he needs, obviously, is high-quality equipment, that S-rank sword of his, but with that nasty 30% miss debuff. His sister shows up and asks if he's heading to the dungeon, and he says, yes. She thinks it's risky and tells him to buy armor since the kid's basically wearing 3 rags, but he explains his stats are too low for that. True, now that I think about it, his attributes are still way too low. Okay, sure he's insanely lucky. But how the hell is he supposed to fix that? Takahashi wants the answer to that himself. For now, his only option is to keep farming and see what happens. At least he's been gaining some skills that help him fight. Near Zomi tells him that if he wants to get stronger and use armor, he needs to raise his stats. And she mentions something about the 15th floor. He confirms, saying yes, that's where the Crown of Alice is, a rare monster that drops a miraculous fruit. His sister wishes him luck, gives him some food, and tells him to be careful. I don't know why, but this family is way too happy. Any moment now, a meteor's going to crash into that house. Now, we're in the forest with carnivorous plants devouring bugs, and our protagonist really does look like a side character in that ragged outfit of his. Alice's dungeon obviously is surrounded by plants, and the biggest problem is that it's extremely easy to get lost there. The good part is, since it's one of the early floors, plenty of adventurers have passed through, and there's even a perfectly detailed map of everything. He walks for a while and reaches a spot that should, in theory, be the nest. The trees look normal standing still, but if you throw a rock at one, in theory, it moves. Right then, the creature rises to attack him. But he was already expecting it, saying his strike hit dead on, landing yet another critical. As long as you know where the surprise attacks come from, this place isn't that hard. Obviously, after killing one, the bastard immediately gets a rare drop. He eats it, saying it tastes kind of like an apple. But that detail doesn't matter at all. What he was interested in was that right there, he had gained another point in strength. Those fruits were extremely rare, so normally it wasn't a viable strategy to farm them just to raise your attributes. Unless, of course, you were some bastard with 999 luck who could spend all day in the dungeon dropping and eating. And sure enough, the kitten already gained 27 more strength, plus 13 and 14 and everything else. Guess I take back what I said. Problem solved for him. He decides it's time to head back for today when something suddenly brushes past his back. He turns around startled, and someone warns him that this isn't a good place to hunt. Two guys with the most honest-looking faces in the world ask who he is. But Yukihito immediately realizes these bastards aren't adventurers at all. They're trackers. One of them, biting at his ankle, mocks that the spoiled brat with his expensive gear is done for. The other tells him to drop everything and get out if he wants to live. But then, out of nowhere, one of them is face down in the dirt. What just happened? The protagonist is thrilled because something activated correctly. The guy had used a technique called Beast Sting, something you only learn at level 25. So yeah, he was way above Yuko. In theory, beasting is an unavoidable strike, which is why it deals 30% less damage. But the protagonist had the Slime's Tear, equipped, an item with a 1 in 3 chance to cut incoming damage in half. Since the strike already hit weak and then got howled, it basically did nothing. If it weren't for his luck, he'd have a hole in his stomach. But luck is the one thing he's got in spades. Now the short guy, barely a meter tall and fuming with rage, wants to know how Yamada got dropped by a single hit, and Yukihito tells him to surrender. Maybe he'll forgive him, but the guy shouts not to underestimate him, claiming he's deadly at long range. Yukio agrees, saying, "Fine, then, since he can't fight at long range, let's make it even." He opens the system, pulls out a staff, and declares they'll fight fair. The whole area is filled with plants, and the big-headed guy is confused, wondering what kind of weapon that is. The protagonist explains it's the Staff of Nonsense, something he looted off one of those creatures. The guy instantly feels like he's already won. The Staff of Nonsense was rare, sure, but completely useless. It triggered random spells, most of them garbage. 40% chance to fail, 30% to cast a beginner spell, 20% to slap yourself with a debuff, and only 9% to pull off something decent. All in all, irrelevant. Now he just had to wait to claim victory. He starts preparing a fireball, confident that with his magic gear and 50 power, the fight's already over. And damn, look at that thing. The fireball's huge, bigger than him. He hurtles it straight at the protagonist, who's just standing there yawning, saying, "Finally, you're done." Then Yukito points his staff at the ground and boom, the end of the dinosaurs drops, right on top of him. The protagonist just raises his arm, staff pointed to the sky, and suddenly his ball is way bigger than the other guy's. It crashes down and crushes him. The man can't take the hit, drops his knees and tries to crawl away, stammering about how Yuko managed to summon a meteor, but it's over. Another hit slams into his back, burning him completely, though in truth he had already pissed himself before the explosion. The blast leads a crater across the whole forest, and the poor guy's left in a state no one should have to see. The downside is he pushed the staff of nonsense so far it's shattered. Yukito sigh, apologizing to both the guy's soul and his chubby friend, saying unfortunately, his luck was just too much. But then he pauses, remembering these guys were criminals. He couldn't just leave them lying there. So he grabs some branches, ties the bastards up, and drags them through the forest. The madmen deliver them straight to the police. It's true, he was already heading out right. He even managed to squeeze in an extra quest. The next day he shows up at the guild saying he's looking for a mission, but the receptionist immediately tells him the police had already reported everything and congratulates him for taking down the bandits. As a reward, she rings a little bell, congratulates him again, and says he's now been promoted to silver rank. Yuki is completely confused. How? How did all this happen? He hadn't done anything special besides clearing a single dungeon. In this world, reaching silver rank is no easy feat. It takes countless dungeons and years upon years of effort. You have to kill hordes of monsters and gather all sorts of items to contribute. Only then are you allowed to advance. The receptionist explains that this is a special rewarder for capturing 2 members of the Red Arm. He knows exactly who they are. One of those crawler organizations that plague countless dungeons, and she tells him that because of this incredible contribution, he's earned the equivalent amount needed to advance to silver. The protagonist realizes that meeting those 2 guys and choosing to turn them over to the police instead of leaving their corpses behind had been worth it. It was almost as if he had made the best possible decisions. He takes the badge, and the woman says she's looking forward to his future achievements. This was perfect for him, because now that he was silver ranked, he could go as far as the 30th floor. And considering that the creature carrying the elixir he wanted was on the 20th floor, he finally had what he needed immediately. That's exactly what he requests. The woman, however, asks him to take it slow. He had just advanced to silver. Was it too soon to go for the harder levels? He thanks her for the concern, but of course he's going to do it. He's thrilled, having ranked up much sooner than expected. Maybe it was another influence of his luck. As he's leaving the association, an old man stops him, asking for a moment of his time. Yukito asks what it is, and the man wants to know if he was the one who defeated the gangsters. Seeing the 2 idiots posted on the wall, the protagonist admits it. Yeah, those bastards tried to launch a sneak attack on him. Suddenly, the old man starts trembling, shining with tears in his eyes, and thanks the boy with all his heart. He pulls one of the posters down and says those scum had murdered his son. Not even the police had been able to find or stop them. But finally, they had been avenged. Yukihito says he didn't do anything special. He was just doing his job as an adventurer. But the old man breaks down crying, saying that now he can finally attend his son's funeral and tell them he was avenged. With that, the man walks away. While Yuka realizes this is the first time since his previous life that anyone has ever thanked him for something he did in a dungeon. It was truly a different feeling. Just as his life was finally starting to improve, he remembered something painfully obvious. He had died an old man because the swarm of creatures that invaded Earth had been far stronger than most hunters. He wonders if there's anything he could do, but quickly comes back to reality. He had only just begun farming and growing stronger. There was nothing he could do about that yet. So he slaps himself back to focus. First and foremost, he had to make sure his mother stayed healthy. That was the priority. The scene shifts to a cave, tools scattered over a stone table, and a bald man slamming his fist, cursing. He can't believe those bastards had actually died. Now that other person wouldn't learn her lesson. On top of that, he wouldn't be able to pay the fee to his big brother. He grabs a dagger, glances at a newspaper, and vows that the bastard who ruined his plans would not get away unpunished. But then he suddenly calms down. He needed to be cautious. This guy had taken down 2 high-level fighters alone. At the very least, that meant he was strong, so he got to create the perfect plan first. And now the boy was out of luck, because his plans never fail. The next day, Yukio was already inside the 15th floor, the solitary mountain, a place with narrow passages and dangerous terrain where many people ended up falling and struggling to finish because of it. On top of that, since it's so hard to navigate, it's a spot famous for bandits. But with the luck he has, he knows he won't fall. He digs his sword into the wall, jumps, launches himself upward, and reaches the top of the mountain, only for an eagle to swoop at him. The plan is to keep leveling up until he's strong enough to challenge the 20th floor. He kills some armadillos, focusing on numbers, wipes out a few pock beasts, slays some bears, and of course he's always gathering piles of items. Meanwhile, the guy who wants him dead is watching from the shadows. The bastard can't believe it. Using nothing but a slime sword with no armor, Yuko is soloing everything. Without a doubt, this has to be him. But he never expected the kid to show up right in his territory. He needs to calm down. No point attacking now. All he has to do is wait for the kid to let his guard down. Later at night, a protagonist lights a campfire, and the stalker realizes that Brat plans to stay in this dungeon for a while. That sparks an idea for how to ruin Yukihito's life. He runs off, remembering the ecosystem here. First, he hunts down the eagles, making sure they can't kill the other insects. Then he gums tons of food for what look like shadow grasshoppers, which begin to evolve, devouring every other monster and spawning even more. They keep multiplying, and by the 4th wave he's sure the plan is flawless. It'll all look like the common fate of an unlucky adventurer sworn and killed by monsters. Seeing the absurd number of creatures multiplying, he grins. Then he sprays them all with insect repellent. Immediately the bugs scatter, crawling upward and sideways in a frenzy. Looks like this guy's some kind of insect tamer. The monsters completely ignore him. Meanwhile, the protagonist is just farming, honestly lucky as hell, minding his own business when he hears a strange noise. He looks back and sees a storm of monsters closing in. Those damn death locusts are coming in numbers he knows he can't handle alone. He quickly sheaves his sword and bolts. He needs to find other people to help him deal with this. At that moment, he remembers a conversation he overheard in his past life. Some adventurers talking about this dungeon, about a certain cave that made everything easier. He recalls the map and heads straight for the mountain that seemed to match the description. No time to hesitate. He slides in, lands on top of a golden toad, crashes against a wall and shouts for help, hoping the panic will draw someone out. No answer. The monsters are coming. So he smashes the wall apart by force. And inside, oh damn, it's full of gad hunters. Clearly he stumbled onto their hideout. Everyone's staring at him, and he asks if he's just found some weird hunter fetish den. They all shake their heads, and he says he figured as much, then starts cutting them loose. The rescued hunters cheer, saying everyone thought they were dead. Yukihito asks what happened. Putting Heads says they were attacked by trackers. The girl with glasses explains they were knocked out with some abnormal item. Another guy adds that they weren't killed. It's because they were meant to be sold. And the redhead pants says they were probably destined for human trafficking. Taking all this in, Yuko is sure now. This is the tracker's nest. That old method from his past life of earning easy points doesn't matter anymore. He starts piecing things together, remembering that in the future the police raid this place, literally a whole squad storming in. What could they even do against hunters? He doesn't know. But somehow they managed to stop the trackers and to make sure that place wouldn't be used like that again. They eventually turned it into some kind of little diner or something along those lines. But Yukihito had discovered everything before the police even had a clue. Obviously, he didn't remember much about other people since he'd spent 70 years doing nothing but hunting slimes. The problem was, this had come out of nowhere, and now he had to make use of the people trapped there. That's when he tells everyone to listen up. He knows it's sudden, but a storm of death insects is heading their way. Everyone looks outside and sees it for themselves and immediately starts asking where they came from and why there are so many. Events like this aren't uncommon. They're called monster panics, but usually they're never this overwhelming. Yuko tells them they don't have time to understand. If they want to survive, they'll have to cooperate with him. The group is uncertain, but the Mohawk guy says with that many creatures, there's no chance of escaping. The brown-haired girl argues it's impossible anyway. They don't have weapons, armor, or the means to deal with this. The gray-haired one agrees, saying they lost everything to those damn trackers. But if there's one person with a full inventory, it's Yuki. He tells them not to worry. With a swipe from his menu, a rain of items pours out, and he tells them to take whatever they need. They're confused, wondering why he's giving all this away. He says not to worry. They can even keep the stuff. Everyone's stunned. The items on the ground are all rare or above. How could someone be carrying so much gear like that? Now, some of them start getting suspicious. No one has ever heard of this guy's name or seen him at the higher ranks, but there's no way a normal adventurer could have this much. Still, without making a fuss, everyone starts picking up gear and equipping it, saying, now they got what it takes to fight. One guy puts on a horn helmet. A girl equips some outfit that looks like it's made to cheat on her man. While the blonde kid is amazed by the sword he got. The girl with glasses asks Yuko if he's sure they can keep such rare items. He says yes, but in return, they'll have to follow his every command. They still look a little uncertain, but considering everyone's now glowing and pumped with new equipment, they agree. The horned girl says she'll nail the shots, and another says those monsters won't stand a chance. Yukihito is touched that they're acting like decent people, remembering the guy who once shoulder-checked him. Someone warns him that this is just the power of money. Nobody actually likes him, but he's still there, all smiles, thanking them. And now the whole group is showing that fake friendly grin. He explains that they'll use the narrow cave entrance to their advantage. The plan is for him to stand in front and draw the monster's attention, while the others surround and cut down anything that tries to flank him. Everyone agrees. He pulls out his sword and tells them to get ready for the fight, which basically means just stand there since the monsters have been charging in for half an hour, but hadn't arrived yet. And of course, the moment I say that, one steps right under his feet. Another gets cut down, fireballs fly, another slash cuts across, a girl launches magic into the sky, and the entire mountain is surrounded. The problem is there are so many creatures that they're struggling to funnel through, and they've started chewing into the cave itself. At the entrance, things are getting tense. The group is getting tired and the wave never stops. Yukita realizes the narrow passage plan. Alone isn't enough. There's no way they can stop them all. And right then the ceiling begins to shake. He tells everyone to hold their ground, not to break formation, but then the ceiling cracks completely. Now there's no formation at all. Everyone runs in different directions, every man for himself or not. Since they're in a cave, there's not much room to escape. The protagonist notices an abandoned mine shaft nearby, unstable, but still there. On the other side, he also notices some dynamite lying around. Most likely, the trackers had planned to use it to expand that area, but now he could put it to use himself. I love how humble the insects are while he goes over, picks it up, and stares at it. They just wait patiently. Then he orders everyone to grab the dynamite, and these bugs turn out to be the friendliest creatures on the planet. Oh wait, just because I said that some of them up front are already tanking hits, weren't there supposed to be some dropping from above, too? Yukihito says they fought desperately against those creatures for hours until at one point only a triangle-shaped section of the cave remained with a hole opening up behind it. The girl says their only options are to jump and die or move forward and die. Even a horned guy carrying the heaviest burden a man can bear admits he can't handle it anymore. Yuko looks back and says he didn't want to solve things this way, but it's the only option left. He calls everyone over, asks for the dynamite, and the group just decides to trust him blindly. His inventory is crammed, and he knows low-intelligence monsters usually target whoever seems the biggest threat, since he's the one who killed the most. That target is him. More enemies come in from the redhead's side, and Chu warns there's nowhere left to run. That's when he gives the order for everyone to escape, and chaos erupts as they rush to get out. Meanwhile, Yuko tells them to run without him. He'll handle this, and they can trust him. The storm of insects charges straight at him, and he thinks to himself that in this life, you'd have to take risks. But come on, you've got 9999 luck, bastard. What risk are you really taking? With a straight face and no shame, he lights 13 sticks of dynamite and leaps off the mountain, bidding farewell to the monsters. But then the system warns him. His chance of successfully detonating explosives is reduced by 50% because his proficiency is low. On top of that, his items are poorly arranged, which lowers the chances even more. But guess what? It worked anyway. The cavern fills with blinding light and everything explodes. The bugs pushing through the middle keep advancing toward Yuko, who's losing his footing among the rocks. But he manages to find a path from one stone to another mid-air. At the same time, he slices through the last pillars holding up the cavern, bringing it all crashing down. Even so, the leader of the swarm is still alive. The creature charges at him, but Yuko uses the beasting technique and lands a perfect critical. The bastard smiles while everyone else stares in disbelief, wondering if the kid really killed the beast while flying mid-air. The protagonist, however, is more concerned with clinging to the wall and not falling into the abyss. Damn, not even 999 luck could save him this time. Or could it? Of course it could. Someone throws down a rope and pulls him up. Seriously though, why does it take 8 people to haul up a 50-kilo kid? End result, the mountain demolished an endless pile of insect corpses. Whatever the gamble had been, Yuko came out on top. The redhead is overjoyed. Her friend says it's unbelievable they made it out without a single casualty. Even the NPCs drawn like MS Paint doodles are celebrating as the system announces he's exterminated a ridiculous number of insects. He receives the title Exterminator, which boosts his damage against any insect by 20%. And he also gains 3 levels, which honestly feels like nothing. Seriously, the guy wiped out like 3,000 bugs for just 3 levels. Granny in this world is pure hell. Meanwhile, the bald man is kicking a wall in frustration. He hasn't even faced the protagonist directly yet, and he's already lost twice. And he knows the higher-ups are going to demand a heavy price for exposing the base and losing those underlings. It's all that bastard's fault. Out of nowhere, he takes a swig of his drink, smashes the bottle against the wall, and growls that he's going to kill him now, even if it meant sacrificing his own life. All right then, let's see what he's going to do, because our protagonist is heading into the dungeon, and all eyes are on him. Looks like the people he saved have been spreading stories. And now he's the popular one, the mountain destroyer, Yuko. Everyone knows he saved countless people, and now everybody wants to invite him into their parties. But he's pulling a Sun Jun Woo from solo leveling. He says he prefers to play solo. He can't take companions because that would only make getting the elixir harder. In battle, loot distribution is random. Back in that insect hunt, he realized that having more people on the team actually lower the quality of what he received. Unfortunately, as amazing as his luck was, it wasn't omnipotent. So, his plan is to go it alone. Next thing we see, he's at home surrounded by a banquet. Every Gadu goes. His mother and sister are all smiles. That nostalgic feeling of happiness fill in the room. While his sister says she knows he's heading for the 20th floor, and her mother worries. Only 15% of people make it through, and the death toll is high. The protagonist tells her not to worry. He's the real deal. While his mother pleads with him not to push himself too hard. He remembers her sniffing the towel and says he's more concerned about her health than anything else. His sister thanks him. His mom laughs and they all start eating. He gulps down. Some water, says he's off in search of the elixir 2 again. And now we're finally at the 24 dungeon of the pillars. Explain this. 50 frames of him eating and chatting with his sister, and then suddenly he's in the dungeon sprinting through and slashing everything in sight. The creatures there are inorganic types. They have no mercy for adventurers. If they get the chance, they'll kill you instantly. He's running when a gargoyle swoops from the side, but he whips around and lashes out with his sword. He keeps charging deeper until he finally stands face to face with the golem. The plan at first is to just observe the patterns and learn how the monster moves. He dodges its attacks until he's certain of its rhythm, then charges in and slashes its arm. The monster falls and he finds himself in front of the boss door. The outcome here would mark the start of a new life for him. As the door opens, he sees a strange chamber. He's never seen one like this before. Something in the center, and once you enter, the door seals shut. At least the cursed statue isn't here laughing at him, just the ancient golem, the bastard guarding the elixir. The 24 boss, armored and devastatingly strong. But Yukihito steps forward, knowing all it has are those stats. Its speed and patterns are predictable enough to handle. His plan is to land a direct strike right in the core. But wait, what's that bald guy doing there watching our protagonist? I don't know if it's his doing, but suddenly a second golem appears. Oh, so the bald guy slipped in, activated his own golem, and left Yuki facing both. Absolute bug abuser, get back here so I can report you to the GM. Yukihito knows no beginner survives the 20th floor. This man deliberately turned it into a double dungeon. A knife comes flying and he blocks it. Certain now that none of this is coincidence. The bald guy with the wide earrings notices how sharp the kid's reflexes are. But with multiple precise attacks and 2 golems against him, survival seems impossible. Only an idiot would challenge a boss that requires 4 people alone. The plan to force another golem spawn was perfect. Being a level 52 thief, it was easy for him to conceal a monster's presence. So, while Yuko is distracted, the man provokes the other golem, uses shadow, step, and traps him once again. Not only does he have the thief class, he's also wearing an S-rank cloak of invisibility. For him, the situation is perfect. He's turned it into a 3 versus 1 and knows that sooner or later the kid will make a fatal mistake. Damn, this guy just won't quit. He keeps pushing. He poisons his blade and hurls it again, this time grazing Yukito's cheek. At least the poison triggers, but thanks to luck, the effect fails. T finds it. Strange. That poison is extremely powerful. It shouldn't fail against someone at such a low level. But whatever. All he has to do is keep throwing things and eventually the kid will get poisoned. I'll give him this while he's persistent. Anyone calling him a dumb villain is trolling. He's tossing bombs, rigging the pillars with traps, setting up electric fences, smoke bombs, you name it. He's burning through everything. Meanwhile, the protagonist is just like, "Hey, let me kill my little golem here, please." Teach sets so many traps down there that even he can't stand in it anymore. He's forced to hang up high, but then one of the golems slams the ground, and his expression changes. Yukito asks if he's done with all these cheap tricks yet. Right then, Tishi realizes maybe the kid knew everything all along. As Yuko picks up a dagger from the ground, he calls him out to come down and join the fight. Things are more interesting here. Tishi is shocked. How did the kid even locate? And when he's cloaked with invisibility and using the thief class, Yukihito explains that the basic ability of warriors is intuition. For him, that kind of thing doesn't work. Tushi isn't dumb. He says with Yuko's low-level intuition alone isn't nearly enough. Obviously, the protagonist probably just got lucky, but Yukihito smirks and says, "So what if I'm lying? What are you going to do about it? Leave the room." At that moment, T decides enough is enough. He unchaths 2 daggers and charges in. The protagonist blocks him straight up and throws him back, declaring that now they'll see who's the last one standing. I saw someone comment on this and I've got to agree, considering this is a Chinese story, isn't it missing a towering giant girl? There's always one of those powerhouses in Chinese works. But nope, no giant girl, just a bald guy getting tossed across the room wondering how Yuko spotted in with nothing but low-level warrior intuition. But Yuki knows the guy will never believe it. The truth is, intuition really is the basic skill he received. And it works through probability, and probability changes completely when you've got his kind of luck. His mini-map shows absolutely everything. The traps, the pillars, the monsters, where Takashi is, everything he set up. The thief pushes forward, admitting the kid is impressive for such a low level. Yukiro thanks him for the compliment, and the honest back and forth continues while the golems loom nearby. Tishi is losing his mind, saying that with his agility, it's only a matter of time before Yuko gets nailed by a clean strike. And sure enough, he lands one, stabbing into the protagonist's arm. At least Yuko manages to resist the paralysis. Takashi even praises that, asking how the hell he keeps resisting abnormal status effects.